Well, good evening. How are you all doing? It's starting to be a late night here working in the shop trying to get things caught up and ready for the morning. But I thought I'd do a quick update on the power plant to be going in my 1968 Camaro that I've been working on. Well, in the last couple of days since I got an offer for someone to buy my Fox body and I accepted it, the choice of motors for in the Camaro has changed drastically. What the original plan was for this motor here to go back in it. This motor was originally in the Camaro when I first had it back in 2000. And then when I bought the Mustang and built that into a all-out drag car, the Camaro gave up its heartbeat, transmission, electronics, and everything for in the Fox body. Now what this motor here is, it's your typical 010 block, high nickel. It's a 350 block. It's bored 30 over. It has your typical steel crank. This has a cast crank in it. It has Ohio crank, I-beam rods. They're rated for 500 horsepower, the rods are. The pistons are Molly pistons. The heads, I thought at that time, were 1987 Corvette heads, but our buddy on here, Stevie D, he informed me that they are 1986 aluminum Corvette heads. They're factory 58 cc's. I'm not sure what the runner size are. Originally, they were 194 valves. After I had a little mishap and dropped the valve and hurt a bunch of stuff, I upgraded to 202s when I did the replace the valves. So right now it has 202s and 160s. The intake on it is your just typical small block Victor Jr. What I was running on this was a Demon 750, double pumper obviously, and the distributor was MSD distributor in it, and just that was a great little motor. For our gas around here, it did run on pump gas, but it was pretty marginal. With the flat tops and the 58 cc chambers, it's a little over 11 to 1. So to keep detonation away and try and keep it as safe as I could, all it took was a matter of putting a gallon of avgas to a full tank of gas in the Camaro. Now, and that was on the street. Now, when we were racing it in the Mustang, we were mixing 50-50 high test and avgas, and that kept it really safe. This motor right here, it made 455 horsepower at Armstrong's on the dyno, and it laid over and stopped making power at 6,800. Like I said, that for a budget motor, that's a great little working motor. I'm very proud of it. Like I said, there's nothing exotic in it. It's just your factory GM cast crank, just aftermarket Ohio crank, I-beam rods, nothing crazy. They're only rated to 500 horsepower, and the most exotic thing in it is the Molly pistons, forged pistons. It's just, when you have a light car and a well-built motor, it's amazing what you can do with it. But now, things have changed. Now that I sold the race car, this is what was in the race car. This is all high dollar stuff here. This is not a budget build like that. This here is the same 010 block, except this one here has forged main caps into it. They're studded in the center, and they're splayed bolts on the outside, and the 3 inners are forged and the outers aren't, as people know. Then you have a scat 3.48 crank, which is your standard Chevy 350. It's scat H-beam 6-inch rods. I forgot to mention the rods in the little motor are also 6-inch, but they're I-beams. This one here is forged H-beams, and it has Weisco pistons in it. I'm not sure on the dome, but they are a pretty big dome. The heads on this motor is old school. You'd almost call them antique Dart 220s. These heads are even before the Dart Pro 1s. They started out life as Dart 220s, like I said. They are heavily ported. They are now out to about 230 cc, and they flow 300, and I believe it was 302. I can't remember what the exhaust flowed, but that's for something for 15 years ago. That was the head to have. Now you look at today's technology. For the money that was spent on those Dart heads 15 years ago to buy them, all the money invested in porting them is just crazy as compared to right now. You can go out and buy a better AFR head out of the box, CNC ported, for cheaper than what's in those heads. But that's what we had at the time and back in the day, and they are an awesome little head. This has 208 intakes, and it has 165 exhausts. And the difference, another big difference, is this little motor has roller rockers with a stud girdle. And that was a little tricky, because as Stevie D knows, these Corvette heads take center bolt valve covers. And you cannot run a stud girdle with a center bolt valve cover, because, well, your bolts for your valve cover can't go down through your stud girdle. So what we have here is we have an adapter made to convert your center bolt head valve cover pattern to your typical old school 4-bolt. But now in this motor here, with the rest of the trend of the motor, it's all top quality. What's in here is Giselle shaft rockers. So that requires no girdles. That's the best stability you can get, and you really need that when you're turning a motor 8200. Then the camshaft in this one is a I can't remember the exact specs, but it's right around 640 lift, and I can't remember the duration, but it's way up there. It's way up there. We have it installed at 105 is what we have it installed at. Whereas the little motor here, the camshaft in that is a comp solid. This is flat tappet. That's a roller, obviously. This is a flat tappet, and this one comes in at 550 and 550 exhaust intake. This one here is 1.5 rollers on the intake and exhaust. This motor here is 1.6 ratio rockers. This one here has the dart intake port matched to the dart heads, and this one here also has a MSD distributor. Now this motor here we have run dynoed and run in 2 different configurations. The way it is right now, it is 13-to-1 on avgas, and it runs on avgas, and an 850 Holley. 40 degrees of timing is what it liked on the dyno. That's where we stopped. It may have taken more, but 13-to-1 is the limit for avgas, so we didn't want to push the timing that much, so we stuck with the 40. That combo with the 850 Holley dynoed 575 horsepower at Armstrong's. And the other combo is the exact same motor, cam, heads, everything, other than 14-to-1. So you raise the point of compression 1 point, and we do that with our head gaskets. And so 14-to-1 on Q16 and a 950 Holley, it makes 620 horsepower. The reason I lowered the compression to make less power was because, being a bracket car, it doesn't matter. Unlike all-out racing, it doesn't matter how fast you go, it's the consistency. And the cost of Q16 here for a barrel is over $1,500, whereas avgas is around $400. So that was the reason of lowering the compression. So what the plan is now, instead of putting the little motor back in, now that I have this good motor freed up, obviously we're not going to run 13-to-1 and avgas on the street. So what we're going to do is we're going to tear it apart, we're going to hone it, we're going to hone the cylinders, we're going to align hone the mains, check everything, and I have a 375 crank, which is going to convert that to a 383. So I got another so I got a 383 crank, 3.75 stroke. I got another set of H-beam, 6-inch H-beam rods, and I'm going to buy a set of flat tops. So then that'll bring this compression roughly the same as the little motor, which will be right around 11 or 11.2, somewhere in that range. And then we're going to put a smaller roller into it, something that's a little more suitable to the street. And the goal is to make 550 on pump gas, which won't be a problem with the added cubic inches and such. We have a proven combination that we are going to mirror image, basically. So